Welcome, everyone, to Keyword Crypto. Another day, another week, post-election show. It is November the 8th. And yesterday, we found out that Joe Biden won the election.
If you believe
and
the media.
If you believe. And, and like a lot. Speaking of the privilege of being white, I heard that LA had like thousands of white people popping champagne and partying in the streets. Is that true?
Honestly, I don't pay attention to stuff like that.
I saw photos and I was like looking at them, and they're all white people, aren't they?
I drove into like central LA, predominantly Hispanic neighborhood, because my other poor friend was driving up from Orange County. He was trying to find discounted tires.
Poor friend.
This guy. This is the worst part. So I say my poor friend. My friend makes over $100,000 a year, but he has 2 kids and a wife, and she is a stay-at-home mom. That's her job, and does like some photography on the side, but not much. But his company is based out of Irvine, which is one of the most expensive cities in the world now to live per capita.
Really? Is Irvine that expensive? Wow.
Housing to income ratio. And so he has to rent. He's renting a 2-bedroom apartment and still gives himself an allowance of like $75 a week for everything, including gas to
so
get
he makes
to work.
$100,000 a year. He makes $100,000 a year and he's poor. Man, yeah, I better never have kids because I'll never be able to. I live in the Bay Area.
Yeah.
I don't make that much money. So
unless you get crypto rich, but like, so he has, an 8-year, he just bought an 8-year-old vehicle. So, and then he drives around to.
Sounds like what I would do.
So if you go into lower income neighborhoods, especially Hispanic neighborhoods, or in LA, it's Mexican. Southern California, it's Mexican neighborhoods. They have these tire stores where they get used or factory refurbished tires. And
dude, I get them all the time.
Oh, okay.
There used to be a guy down the street from me.
Yes, I've never done that. He's been doing it for years, but he says if you go in there, you have to check the sell-by date. Because sometimes they'll have like 20-year-old tires and you're never supposed to drive around anything older than 10 years.
Right.
So he went there yesterday. We met up. He drove from Irvine to this place in central LA. And he's like, oh, yeah, I found these great tires, but they were 17 years old. So I was driving all over LA.
Tires aren't supposed to last more than like 5 years.
Yeah, I didn't see anybody popping champagne, but I wasn't in those neighborhoods yesterday.
Yeah, that's
long
the
story
thing.
short.
I saw pictures of like Echo Park where people are like dancing in the streets and stuff. They're the same people that were at like my wife and I, we went to the Women's March 4 years ago, the year that Donald Trump was elected.
Yeah,
and like my wife, who is a person of color, was kind of like, she was like, "This is really cool. Women's March is really cool, but it's kind of been taken over by this anti-Trump movement."
Yes,
and it's like a lot of like white women in pain, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, Donald Trump has stolen our, and so the pictures that I saw that we looked at today were kind of like, it was these same people partying now that Trump has been elected out. Yeah.
I was thinking about it. I was thinking about it today. Is somebody posted something and. Oh, it's about all these white men, conservative white men saying like, well, now that Democrats are in office, they need to really reach out to us conservatives. And it's just like, well, conservatives were in office, were in control of everything for 2 years. They didn't do any reaching out to Democrats. Why is it always
totally double standard?
Why is it always black women? Why is it always Latinos? Why is it always everybody else? Why is it always women who need to understand what rich white men are thinking and poor white men are thinking and conservative white men? Wait, it's everyone else's job, everyone else's responsibility to figure it out. And it's like that is it's such an annoying thing to witness, and I'm just sitting there just like embarrassed half the time for my fellow white men, because for half of them in this country. Because it's like, you guys, stop being so fucking selfish and self-centered. Like, just think of somebody else besides yourself for 5 minutes. I mean, and I'm a pretty self-centered guy. I live alone. I'm single right now. I'm a pretty self-centered person, but at least I'm aware of it.
That's definition of self-centered.
When someone's like, "Bro," and I was like, "Oh, sorry, I've been in my apartment by myself for the last 6 months, so I'm getting a little self-centered." But I'm aware of it. I'm conscious of it. Like, the fact that people say these things and they're just completely oblivious, like fucking vomit diarrhea guy Santorum. Oh my God, some of the stuff he was saying was just ridiculous. So yeah.
I kind of, I listened to Joe Biden's speech, and it was all like, hey, now we got to come together. We got to put away the vitriol, and we got to we got to remember the other side, that they're Americans. They're not just Trump supporters.
Yeah.
And I got to draw a line somewhere. As you know me, you know the way I am. I'm like, I always want to make conversation. I always want to try to convince somebody. I'd rather try to talk to somebody than just pass them off as not worth my time. However, what did Joe Biden? He said that they're not our enemies. Our opponents are not our enemies. But when it comes to fascists, I have to say they are my enemy. Nazis are my enemy.
Yeah.
They're my opponent and they're my enemy. I'm not gonna come together with the Nazis and try to work things out. It just doesn't work.
Yeah,
Unless you
absolutely.
can, unless there's a way. I don't know, because either that shit is some sort of maybe that's a mental health problem right there. But it's such a I don't even know where to start. But
Well,
at this
see,
point,
here's the
it's
funny thing, because I'm gonna be the devil's advocate for you in the situation, which
okay.
is normally you're the one that I'm this one screaming and yelling at people. I would say the Nazis and the fascists are the vocal minority of conservatives in this
I
country.
believe that too. Yeah, and that's why I'm
I
willing to
think,
talk to most
with
conservatives most of the
Hitler
time.
in Nazi Germany, I would say the vast majority of the people who were supporting him were just it kind of took them on by storm. They got, it was kind of like being in a cult. It sounds really cool and
Yeah,
great at first, and then all of a sudden you're in it and you're like, holy shit, this is fucking nuts. And I'm stuck
yeah,
in
and
this because
you
they've
can't
told me they're
speak
gonna
out.
fucking kill me if I say
Yeah,
anything bad about them,
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
You're probably right.
understand it. I feel like a lot of people, and then here's the other thing, and I don't, and I, I'm hesitant to say this, but we only have 200 listeners now, small amount of listeners, but I think Donald Trump was a competence man. He is a competence man, and he takes people in. He sells the snake oil. He makes them feel good about themselves, and usually it's you know the people who are on the lower half of the average IQ who fall for confidence scams. Now, we can all fall for a
Uh-huh.
confidence scam, but usually people who are on the upper half of the average of an IQ, usually it's harder for them to fall for that kind of stuff. But we still fall
So
for it
he
because
he
if
ropes in all the
anybody,
dumb people, is what you're saying.
well,
Yeah.
I feel like, so if somebody knows JJ and they know you well, they can con you, because they can tailor a con just for you, and they can con you. Anybody can be conned by somebody who targets you specifically or targets me specifically.
Mhm.
It's almost impossible to stop that, because when they have that much information about you, unless your spidey sense is tingling, it's very difficult to not get conned by that. I mean, it happens all the time. We see really smart
Yeah.
people fall
You're
for,
right.
they get sucked into a cult, like, Bitcoin or whatever.
Yeah.
Boom!
Or a
Bitcoin
podcast. A
slam.
podcast.
See, I just did a whole thing, a whole story, just so I could slam Bitcoin.
I see. I was about to say I got conned into doing this podcast.
You totally did. Took me 6 months, but I finally convinced you.
Yeah, but if you know somebody, you can target them.
Yeah. So, but I
No,
think
you're
there's
right.
also a subset of the population of all humanity that they can watch a TV show. Like, how many people watch these televangelists on TV and send them money. Those are the people who are getting bamboozled by Trump. Like, you just,
Well,
like,
what is
what are you
what
going
does
to
Richard
do?
Hart say? He says Richard Hart says you got to take all the people who are really easily scammed, and then you got to give them a good scam, right?
Yeah.
I really want to see how his good scam is gonna
Oh my
pan out.
God. I'm
Oh
really
my god,
nervous
that
about.
is well, I mean, it's the scam is one of our favorite words on this show because we don't
Yeah,
even know what it means anymore. Because what the fuck is a scam?
I
I
know.
actually think that one of the craziest and weirdest and best and worst moments of crypto in the last 5 years is the Carlos the
BitConnect
BitConnect
guy.
guy. Like, like I mean, you remember that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
everybody knows that. And everyone knows it because it's a meme. It's the
absolutely.
what's up, BitConnect. Like everybody was doing that. It got old really fast and stuff. But think about it. Like, what the hell was that event? Like, that was one of those big culty, like, hey, everybody get together and let's talk. Like, none of the founders of the project are there. They like somehow hired these people to come and volunteer to be spokespeople for this thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
what a weird, like, I kind of wish that I was there, but I'm glad I wasn't. Like, but like to like be at I don't know. That's just so strange. And then like a week later, for the whole thing to collapse. Um,
But you got to
and
remember,
and
like 90% of cryptocurrencies out there are complete confidence scams
so
that are going to go to
are
zero. I
they
mean,
like I
how much of DeFi? Like 99.9% of
so
DeFi over the
so
last 2 months was all a
well
fucking scam,
so
and
I don't.
everybody fell for it.
Well, here's the thing. So there's a few. Let's talk about scams for a second because there's BitConnect, which is obviously for someone like you or me, we look at that and go, the way BitConnect was supposed to work is that they had some bot that was trading either arbitrage or it was like it was like swing trading Bitcoin or something, right? So they built this great bot and you could lend the
Yeah,
bot money and it would trade for you. We know that that's bullshit. You can't do that.
yeah,
So that's an obvious Ponzi scheme. All right. So that was malicious from the beginning. There's like like all of those coins, like what's it, one coin or whatever, that those are like, they're meant to scam people. They're exit scams. That's what their plan is. But then there's all these projects which probably don't start out as scams. They get a team together, they get a white paper, they have all great intentions, and they either don't make any money, they go insolvent, they go out of business, they give up. If a project gives up, is it a scam? If they walk away with all the money that they made, is that considered a scam? They
yes,
exit, but they really
yes.
but it well
If there's
it's
money
either
left
that or they have
over
to
and they
give up.
walk away with it, that's a scam.
But what if the money it was so the alternative would have been to give all the money back to the Ethereum addresses from the ICO or something like that. See,
Yeah, there's actually a couple of them in the
sound.
last 6 months to a year that have actually done that. I can't
Yeah.
remember off the
Okay.
top of my head, but
So
I was going through this, like, you go through every few days. I go through all the news articles in crypto, and I was like, oh, this one company didn't pan out a couple of years later,
right,
and they were giving all the leftover money back to the people who
they
invested.
gave all the crypto back.
Yeah,
So that's cool. So then anyone who walks away with the extra money exit scams. So there's
yeah,
probably lots of legitimate businesses that go out of business and end up exit scamming. So crypto makes it very very easy to take the low road. Basically,
yeah.
makes it very easy to turn evil.
So in my
Yeah,
in my mind,
that's
if I
probably
was going
true.
to start up a crypto project, what I would do is my white paper would be: this is how much we're going to pay people. This is how much we're looking to raise. Anything
Hmm.
beyond that will just extend the amount of time we have to work on it. If after 2 years we still haven't, or a year and a half, we still haven't been able to do it, we're just going to give all the money
Yeah.
back, all the leftover money back. Like, that's the goal.
Yeah. Huh.
Um,
Huh.
and we're going to
Interesting.
give it back to the address, and we're going to prorate it and give it back to the addresses that supplied it, whatever. So, like, just make it very clear of, like, these are our salaries, because if we collect $200 million and we're paying each of our people $1 million a month, and you got 15 people or 10 people working on the project, of course that's not gonna it's gonna last like 6 months, 7 months. But like being if you're figuring out what each person needs to succeed, like to have
Yeah.
a comfortable life while they're working, I don't
I just feel
I
like it'd
I
be
don't
pretty
think that's
easy.
bad.
It would be pretty easy to create a business around a cryptocurrency or a crypto project with knowing fully well that you're not going to succeed, just so that you can take investment money. I mean, I guess that's
Not
what a
in
lot of
America
startups do
anymore.
too.
Not
Well,
in
no, not in
America.
America. No, but I mean, it's pretty easy to have a crypto that's based out of Lithuania or whatever.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
you know,
And just put like Mario Gibney's face all over the place.
right. Yeah, we got to mention in every show.
people people who are
Mario
like,
Gibney and all his crazy roommates. Yeah.
recognizable enough where people are like, hey, that guy looks familiar. And he looks like
Yeah, I
Jesus.
heard about
How
his new
bad could he
altcoin crypto
be?
scam. Yes. Jesus coin. That there is a Jesus coin already. That can't be
Yeah. Oh
Mario's.
yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
So
So what is
I
going on
wanted
in
to
crypto right now? So
I wanted to talk about how Bitcoin is officially Wall Street's bitch now.
bitch, huh? Okay.
Is
Wall
that
Street's
too
bitch.
aggressive? Is that too mean?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I have no problem with that word.
Because at this point,
Well,
we've
like
seen it completely crash in March with all the other Wall Street
uh,
stocks. With everything happened, everything collapsed. So obviously, it wasn't a safe haven in a time of complete economic crisis. People dumped it like
you're
they
talking
dumped
about the
everything
March
else.
14th,
Yeah,
the March 14th crash. Okay.
yeah,
So yeah, at that point it was very much tied. It was doing the same thing as the stock market on that day.
yeah.
Right.
And
So
then
you
over the
you have a
last,
your theory is that that's going to continue from now on.
I think the vast majority of cryptocurrency now is owned by Wall Street. So I think 100% of it is going to be tied to Wall Street now. Bitcoin is officially
And that should make it a lot easier
a Wall
to
Street
trade.
cryptocurrency. It's easier to trade, but it's not a safe haven. It's not a store of value. It's not anything like that. It's not. It's just a
No,
stock at this point, like everything else, and it's going to be traded like a stock,
no.
just like everything else. And when people need to unload their portfolio, well, Wall Street traders, when they say dump 1/3 of your portfolio, they're going to dump 1/3 of their Bitcoin. And so it's just going to be so. I mean, people are like, oh, for the last 3 weeks, it's deviated from the stock market, and then as soon as Wall Street figured out Biden was uh, pretty much going to win, the stock market spiked, and so did Bitcoin. I mean, it literally follows Wall Street now. So it's just
Yeah. I don't know, Michael.
it's the bitch of Wall Street. Yeah, I mean, bitch
I
isn't a
don't
good
know.
word. I don't like that word, but
I
you
don't
know what I
know.
mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't know because, well, I mean, you're making a correlation, and I do think that there have been a lot more, Wall Street investors moving Bitcoin, OTC, and stuff like that. We kind of know about a lot of it in the last year. It's been
Yeah,
happening for the last 3 years.
yeah.
The herd is coming in 2017. That meme. So yeah, that would make sense. However, I don't know. I think maybe you're right that is the way things are going. But I don't know. I don't know if I believe that it's going to do whatever the stock market does yet, because there's still so much overseas, and there's still. I mean, it's still pretty decentralized. So in terms of miners and stuff like that. So
I mean, did you
I
see
don't
what
know. Well,
Coinbase
we'll
is doing
see.
right now? They're doing,
Well, no. What,
um,
what are they doing? Oh, yeah, they're doing like a fractional reserve thing, basically, right?
yeah.
They're making their own little Lightning network
Well, I mean,
or something.
they're essentially creating a database and
PayPal.
say JJ owns 10 Bitcoin and Michael owns 10 Bitcoin, and JJ needs to send some to Michael, so we're just going to write
I
it
thought
down in
they
our
already did that.
ledger.
I totally thought they already did that.
I'm
Because
sure
if
they
you
did,
sent,
but
if
now
you,
they're just being honest about it.
I mean, because if I sent you a Coinbase payment, it was instant. I mean, not only that, but they didn't charge you any like a transaction fee.
I
So
mean,
it's
I
like,
was sending
I
it
don't know.
off. I used to buy on Coinbase Pro, and I would send it off exchange, and because they had free, they had feeless sending off. I don't like. I guess they were just eating the
Yeah.
fees, um,
Well,
and they stopped doing that now. Now they
because they,
charge.
oh, do they? I thought that you could
Yeah,
still send from
no,
Coinbase Pro
no, Coinbase Pro.
with
They
no
started
transaction.
charging.
No, that can't be because I've made a payment recently and there was no transaction fee. I know for Bitcoin at least.
I'm not talking about
Hmm.
payments. I'm
Hmm.
talking about sending Bitcoin off the exchange.
Yeah, no. I recently did that and there was no transaction fee. They ate the transaction fee for me. Definitely.
I mean, they announced it
I
6
was
months
I was really
ago.
surprised.
It was a huge
Hmm.
deal. All right, let me look it up for a second.
Well, the point is that yeah, now they're a bank.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I mean, and this is the
Well,
biggest
so we're gonna see
crypto
more of that.
crypto exchange in the U.S. probably, and maybe even, I would say probably so definitely the U.S. And so at this point, it's just like
So
I don't know. I just don't
if you
I
want to
don't
be
see Wall Street caring if India or China is going to accept or ban Bitcoin anymore. So we're not going to have those massive swings when I
hmm.
remember how it was back in 2017 and 2018, where like any news article that came out, it would drastically affect the price by like 20 or 30%.
So this might mean that the sell-offs are just going to be more volatile, but they might happen at the same time as the stock market. That
I,
might
don't,
be what that means. That's kind of what happened in March. Yeah.
I mean, more volatile? I don't think. I mean, yeah, I mean, it could.
I just mean that the swings will be bigger because like retail is going to panic in Bitcoin probably in a more volatile way than it would in the stock market, but I don't really know
Yeah.
because you've got the whole world 24 hours a day buying and selling. I don't know. I think a lot of this is all just speculation because I really think that Bitcoin is nobody has any fucking idea what it's going to do. I have a feeling it's just a few whales, and I don't even know if those are Wall Street whales at this point. Really, I don't know. Bitcoin has a mind of its own. I swear there's like a Bitcoin god that's just sitting there going, I'm going to convince Michael that this is the way it is just so I can totally fuck him over in 10 hours or whatever. That's what
But
I
that's the
think.
thing is like I'm just not going to fall for it anymore.
Because you're not gonna touch Bitcoin.
Yeah, quote unquote air quotes anymore.
Well, man, it really tests you. The recent drop in all the altcoins is really like, oh, this must be the end. And of course, the biggest pump of the
Oh,
season
oh my God,
happens.
the
It's just really kind of
DeFi.
miserable.
So I was telling, yeah, that DeFi
So
stuff was painful.
people are still doing yield farming right now, right? That's like still something people are trying to do.
I don't
I've
know. I'm not
I've
hearing
only
about
seen a
it.
little bit on Twitter. I've seen a little bit on Twitter people talking about some of these projects that are still worth some money to yield farm, but I think that the percentage yields are dropping pretty fast
I think people just realize
as they
that
would.
it's the fees just make it uh, impossible
Are the
if you
fees in
don't have enough
Ethereum?
money in it.
I guess so. The Ethereum fees aren't that bad right now, though.
Well,
Now
it's
that
because
it's cooled off.
that's because everybody stopped farming.
Uh
But
huh.
if people start farming again, the fees just go right back up. So
Yeah, I guess so.
until layer two or version two pops into place, but like that's the problem.
So so do you? I when Donald Trump was elected, that pretty much that day I was buying, like that day and the day after it was when I really bought into a lot of Bitcoin.
I'm so
And
jealous. I'm so jealous.
Well, I mean, don't be jealous, because that just means that I was obsessed with it for a little bit longer than you. It doesn't mean that like it was a pleasant experience, or even that I have more. Like I'm like it's I don't know. I don't even think that it, like if I could have bought in 6 months earlier, I don't think I would really be better off, to tell you the truth. Um, but
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
but
Yeah, no, I know.
like but I remember thinking, oh, Donald Trump's going to fuck up the economy. I should probably get into these digital currencies, like these. I should probably get into these non government currencies.
Yeah,
Um,
and
and
he
that's what I was
absolutely
thinking.
did. He's absolutely fucked up our economy.
He's fucked up our economy in a very very weird way. I thought he was going to tank the U.S. dollar, and it. I mean, he's done weird things to the economy for sure. But
And
now that he's been voted out, which doesn't mean he's going to leave, and we all know that like that's going to be a much weirder thing, and 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 I don't know if maybe you
he'll
know a little bit
leave.
more about the way you probably know a little bit more about the way government works, but I mean, the electoral college still needs to do its thing technically. I mean, usually we get a concession speech from the loser, and we haven't gotten that this time, which makes me really uncomfortable, because there's probably all kinds of technicalities that bring in a new president and that are bypassed with a concession speech. But like, okay, so let's say Biden goes into the White House and he starts doing things a responsible president would do, or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't make me feel like the US dollar is going to be all of a sudden worth more, or that the economy is going to be better. It makes me even a little bit less certain even. I don't know. The state of our country has just been so jacked
Well, I mean,
in
so
the
like,
last
what's
four
what
years.
specifically are you concerned about? Like, is there
Uh,
something specific, or is it just like a general malaise of?
oh no, it's a general malaise, but I think a lot of it has to do with our relationship with China and China's relationship with the rest of the world and their weird economy and social issues and stuff like that. And COVID is part of that.
Yeah,
Like, if we end up going to war with China or something like that, what is that going to do to, like, yeah, I mean, it think about it this way. We talked about this last week with Adam, the creator of Wasabi Wallet. Check out that interview if you haven't heard it yet. But right now, the last money that we have that we can trust is the U.S. dollar, is our cash. Right? Everyone's so
yeah,
stoked about Venmo and PayPal, and oh, it's so easy, and they never have to carry cash anymore. Okay, great. Now the government has a way to just shut off your bank account. They can just sanction you and not allow you to use any of your money, access any of your money, and that's really scary. I mean, a country could do that.
yeah.
And so when we're entering that kind of world, and we're talking about a potential economic and or armed conflict with a country that actually controls its people in that way. I mean, who wouldn't want to find an alternative way to hoard your money? I mean, like, who wouldn't? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just paranoid.
Well,
So
so
it's general
I
malaise.
okay. So first off, the chances of us getting into a land or sea battle, we would never get into a sea battle with China, because China would never get into a sea battle with us, because they've got like one aircraft carrier, and it's a complete joke. So they're
Yeah.
not going to get into any kind of open sea conflict with the U.S. That's just not going to happen. The chances of them getting into a land battle with the U.S. are slim, because they would have to invade us to do that, unless we did a proxy battle like we did in Vietnam or Korea. It's just the chances are that they're we're probably never going to have another World War II type war, just because our technology is
Well, I'm not.
too insane, and it would just probably lead to nuclear war, and no one wants that. So that's why
Yeah.
what you've seen over the last 50 years is proxy wars, Iraq,
Yeah. Totally. Well, that's
Vietnam.
what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about us actually going to sending
Okay,
troops to China. I don't think that's going to happen. No, I
okay,
think Cold War and possibly nuclear threats, or cyber warfare. all
Yeah,
kinds of shit like
cyber
that.
warfare is
Economic
stuff we
economic
absolutely have to
hitmen.
worry about.
Yeah.
Um, so, but that's the thing. Like China, China has, China isn't dumb. They're extreme. They're an extremely smart country. They know how to play the game, and they know that if they cut off the U.S. dollar spigot, that would tank their economy because we buy the majority of their goods. That's the reason why they keep buying our debt and supporting us, is because they know that if that relationship sours, not only are they not going to get that debt paid back, but on top of that, they're not going to have anybody to buy any of their stuff. So they would lose like 20% of their GDP right off the bat just from us as a buyer. And then they'd have all this debt that they own of ours, that if we were going to war with them, we would just stop paying back that debt. So they would have, I mean, it would
Mm.
completely destroy just completely destroy their country. Now it would come back because they have all the infrastructure to get it going and everything. And they're a communist country; they can just print money and devalue their currency.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
the rest
And
of the world
enslave
would
people or
probably be
whatever.
less compliant to work with them about that kind of stuff. But what they've also been doing is creating that new Silk Road, and like in Africa and all these places, and they just say, here's some money, no strings attached. Whereas the U.S., fucking conservatives and these, cult fucking Christian leaders are like, oh yeah, you can have some money as long as you don't have abortions in your country. And Africa's like, what the fuck? And then China's like, you know what? Here, we'll give you the same money, no strings attached. And they're like, done. So China's been moving into Africa, just blanketing the continent with money, helping to build
Uh-huh.
infrastructure in Africa. And now they all love the Chinese. And they're like, fuck
Yeah.
America. We don't really care about you guys. You and your
Yeah.
fucking, radical
Is
Christian
that
right bullshit. Like, stop trying to indoctrinate us into
well?
your
If what you
fucking
say is
cult.
true,
And so,
yeah.
but that's the thing. So now China has that kind of upper hand where they're kind of beholden to China now. And actually, a couple people have been interviewing people out there, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't really have a choice. China wants to come in, and we can't really say no because they built our entire port.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
they pretty much own us now." And it's just like, okay, yeah, that
Yeah.
does kind of suck.
Chinese. I don't. I mean. I don't follow what China is doing in Africa. So if what you say is true, that wouldn't surprise me because I do know that that there are there's a lot of real estate being bought in the Philippines and and Indonesia and stuff and other Southeast Asian islands and countries that that it's mostly Chinese real estate
Yeah,
developers
yeah.
moving down there. And I think that the Chinese government encourages it, but I don't really know that much about it. I've only heard little stories about it's just kind of a new type of colonization by
I mean,
China.
it's what I keep reminding people is that Japan did it in the '90s, and when their when their recession hit, they realized they were overextended. And I remember people in the '80s and '90s were all freaking out because Japanese people were buying everything in New York. They're like, "Oh my God, the Japanese are taking over!" And then there was a recession, and the Japanese people had to sell
Yeah,
everything, and their economy
yeah,
tanked for 10 years, 20 years. It's still like just now coming out of the recession. And you see it in China. They've got they've got massive ghost cities, entire cities that are built that nobody lives in. Like cities the size of New York that not a single person lives in. They're just sitting there.
hmm.
And people are buying up all this real estate there. And they're like, oh, this may pay off in 200 years and we have enough people to actually, live in all these cities. But they're also doing it all over so I think they're doing it all over the world. So I think that once China collapses, because it's bound to, just like America's bound to a collapse, as we're printing money hand over fist, eventually it's going to catch up to us, and eventually it's going to catch up to them, and their entire economy is built off of just kind of printing out money, printing out money, printing out money, and paying people to do stuff for nothing. So I don't know. It's just like, you can only build for so long until there's just nothing left to build. And then what? You've got all this infrastructure and just nobody to fill it out. You have no, I mean, and they're the most populated country on the planet. And that's crazy to think about, that they have so many houses and apartments in that country that they don't have enough people to occupy them all. They have entire cities
Really?
that
That's
people can't
crazy.
occupy because the most populated country on the planet doesn't have enough people for all the housing that they have in China. Like, that's just nuts to think about compared to
Is that
America,
really
where we're,
true? That's
yeah.
crazy.
Just
That's
type in
crazy.
China ghost city, and there's like, I think there's
Hmm.
like 7 or 8 of them. So, and Bitcoin's not
Oh
going to fix
man.
that. Bitcoin doesn't fix that
If Bitcoin's
because
not gonna
because
Bitcoin's not
I
gonna
because I think
save.
like because I think like ultimately when societies collapse, did having gold really help? I mean, it helped a little bit, but if you're hungry, someone's like, hey, I can give you gold for your shoes, and one person's like, I'll give you a hamburger for your shoes. They're like, fuck it, I'll take the hamburger just because
Yeah.
you're fucking starving, or like somebody's got a chicken. You're like, dude, not only can I eat that chicken, but for the next 3 months, I can get eggs out of it. I can get an egg out of it like once a day or something, whatever, however long it takes for them to make an egg. Do you know how long it takes chicken to make an egg?
Oh, it depends on the season, I think, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think they can
Are
make
you
one a
just
day.
saying? Oh, okay.
Um, well, okay, yeah. The so yeah, Bitcoin does not fix those kinds of problems. I
No,
was actually thinking about some of the problems that we've had this year and what Bitcoin could fix. Do you actually see a future where we don't have these voting issues because we can use blockchain, some sort of uh, some sort of
I
trustless way to vote?
I do. I mean,
It
I
seems like
think
the most
it's already,
obvious. Yeah,
well. It's
to me,
like
it seems like the most obvious use case. Yeah.
we already have databases, and databases can prove whether the person's alive or dead, and can prove who voted and who sent it out. And um, but I think even with blockchain wouldn't help. Like, if so, you're with your wife, blockchain, unless there's an identification, which I think rightly so, a lot of people would be concerned about if you had to prove who you are and they had your ID digitally. I mean, that would be, I think people would be a little nervous about that. I mean, black
Mm-hmm.
people in the South especially are adverse to um, getting a driver's license because they don't want the government to know that much about them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you imagine saying,
Yeah.
okay, we're just going to get your fingerprint and this and that, and then now you can vote online because we have all this all these
Yeah.
identifiers for you. I think people would be nervous
That's a
about
good
that.
point.
Um,
That's a good point. In order to reach the sort of socialist levels of distribution for any blockchain, you really do need to uh, you really do need identification. You need like identity. You need to collect identities too.
yeah.
Sadly, I mean, yeah.
Now, what you could do is say um, something along the lines of, when you vote, you create um, a digital version of like your thumbprint or fingerprint somewhere, like on your phone, or a face scan or something. And I don't know, how would you do it? It would have to keep the data points, but not the actual picture. And it wouldn't have any kind of. It would have to go into the data. It would have to go into the blockchain anonymously. So I would vote. It would be
Mm-hmm.
attached to this data point. And then if anybody else tried to vote, so if I tried to vote again for like you or for a friend, and I tried to use my face or whatever, my fingerprint, that would ping and say, hey, that those data points already got stored, got used once. You can't
Right.
vote twice. So I think there's ways to do it. I think, and there's obviously smarter people than me out there who could figure this out. But I just, I
We already need to collect so much identity just to vote with paper. I mean, if
yeah
you submit a ballot and your signature doesn't match the one on your driver's license, then it can be deemed invalid, right?
yeah
So it's like there's already all this stuff that goes into confirming the validity of a ballot. It's just a matter of like how many Americans or how many people in the world are comfortable with having a big bad blockchain have any personal information of theirs that is permanently on it, whether it's a
yeah
fingerprint or a face scan or something like that. There's probably ways to do it that are really secure and that would be way more secure than a government collecting, signatures or pictures or whatever it is.
yeah
Nothing nearly as insecure as KYC, but still, just getting people comfortable with the idea of using it would be a challenge. But in the future, I think everyone's going to get to this point where they are used to it. I mean, so many people, like the average
yeah
person, is pretty okay with giving up their identity for TikTok.
Facebook and
Like
Twitter. But
yeah.
I think the best way of doing it is the way Afghanistan does it. Afghanistan,
Oh, how does
Afghanistan.
Afghanistan do it?
I think it's Afghanistan. They walk in,
Tell
they
us about
vote.
Afghanistan, Michael.
I think it's either Afghanistan, India, or Iraq. One of those countries. I forget, somebody that we went to war with, I think, or invaded, which it's half the country, half the
That would
planet
be
at this point.
Iraq. We've never invaded Iran. That would be a big deal.
No,
But
Afghanistan. So it's either Afghanistan,
Afghanistan. Okay.
Iraq, or India. So I don't. We didn't
Yeah,
invade India. I'm
Afghanistan. We
not saying
definitely
India.
invaded. Yes.
But when they vote, they dip their thumb into this purple paint, and it can't wash off for days.
Oh,
And so,
interesting.
and that's how they stop people from voting twice. And so people will hold their
Yeah.
thumb and show their thumb and say, "Look, I voted." And so, I
Yeah.
mean,
I guess
that's a great.
you could force people. You could force people to paint their thumbs. um,
That's true. Yeah,
but
you could kidnap people, but I think that
there's
would be. But I
you can
think you could
kidnap
have.
people and take their Bitcoin too.
But if you had, yeah, but I think you could use specific paint that only you could have somebody create specific color paint that only could be bought by the U.S. or the U.S. could make it themselves,
Mm-hmm.
and it could have some kind of like hologram feature where you shine a special light on it and it shows something that
Yeah,
nobody else.
that's
Because like
possible.
that's how the U.S. dollar is created. The U.S. dollar has these things
That would be
that
so
it's
weird. That would
impossible
be
to
so weird if we
recreate.
just painted people's thumbs on election day. That would never fly in America.
Why?
I mean, I just think I actually think that you couldn't get away with marking people's bodies for even for even a like a short amount of time. I don't know. I just can't see it. Can't see it. Giving people temporary tattoos around election times.
I don't know. I mean, if you said, "Hey,
It's a,
you're allowed to vote, but you're not allowed to vote twice," and this is how we
yeah.
know you've already voted.
Here's
You
a
just
temporary tattoo. Can't wash
well,
off.
it's I mean, it's not it's like marking an X with a Sharpie. It's like it takes a day or
Yeah.
two for it to wash off. Like it's impossible to wash off Sharpie. But you just do it on your on the bottom of your thumb. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't see
Yeah.
people
It makes
being
sense. It's a good idea.
that freaked out. But then again, I'm not a freaky conservative who
Yeah. Let's see what else is going on in crypto. Why don't I do a search for news? This is always fruitful, right? Actually,
what
there
could go
probably has not
wrong.
been very much. There has not been very much crypto news because all the news has been election related.
Well,
And
JP Morgan just said that
how about
Bitcoin
this?
institutional inflows in October are impressive. So now JP Morgan is all about Bitcoin.
Yeah. So let's talk about something that let's talk about something close to home then, and that is like um So the crypto communities, I don't even want to call them a communities, like generally have a anti-establishment bent
Yeah.
political leaning, right?
Yeah.
Anti-establishment, either libertarian or progressive, but probably more libertarian than progressive. At least that's the vibe that I get.
I would say like
Have you
neoliberal is a big one. So it's either
neoliberal? Okay.
neoliberal or libertarian, and then there's you and me.
So what exactly does neoliberal mean to you? Because
Neoliberal
I don't really know what it
is
means.
neoliberal is somebody who is economically conservative. So
Hmm.
like they're happy with low taxes, they're happy with
But
free market,
yeah, but
but they
socially liberal.
but they're but they're socially liberal. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that's a
that sounds about
neoliberal.
right.
So that's like Bill Clinton, that's the Clintons, that's Obama, that's all these, and that's why like real liberals get really
But
frustrated
I'm
with
but
them is because they're like,
in
no,
crypto.
these people weren't economically liberal at all. They were,
You
they
think
were
there's
like,
I mean that's but voices in crypto, like people talking in crypto, because obviously there's been a lot of talk about the election in crypto circles on Twitter and on YouTube and all over the place. Um, and I just wanted to know what your bubble was like, because mine, I noticed that there are way more liberal voices lately. Maybe just because it's so anti-Trump, but I don't know. It's just kind of a question because everybody has a different bubble. And when Trump was first elected, I was really surprised because my bubble was so small and so progressive.
yeah.
So
You know what? For a while I was just kind of following anybody, and then I was weeding it out, and then for the last, I mean, I remember, I think I told you that one episode when I went on a war path and just was deleting
you
everybody left
did.
and right and blocking people left and right. And so, um,
It's just making your bubble smaller and smaller.
well, I tend to follow more news, like
Right.
commentary that I trust
See,
who
I don't.
actually,
I don't. Yeah. I follow. I like to follow the common denominator of crypto idiots. Like I like to follow everyone because like the only reason I'm on Twitter, crypto Twitter, is because I want to get like an instant picture of what people think of crypto, like
yeah,
in an instant. I want to know if people are going crazy, like if people are talking about Lambos or whatever. Or I want to know if people are talking about how they hate Justin Sun. I want to know if they're talking because that tells me that tells me whether to buy or sell my
yeah,
Bitcoin, basically.
yeah.
Um,
But you still get
and it's
that by
actually
you. I mean, the people who I follow are still talking about those things. They're still commenting on
mhm,
those things, but they
okay.
tend to be less cultish about it and more
Yeah.
joking around about it. So
Well,
I'm still getting all those memes and stuff, but
mhm,
they're usually kind of laughing at it.
yeah.
So,
How
wait
about
a minute. There's a
something?
Bitcoin Cash hard fork this week. Like, is Bitcoin
Is
Cash still a
there?
thing?
Bitcoin Cash is definitely still a thing. I think any Bitcoin Cash fanboy is going to be really stoked about something like Coinbase doing its Federal Reserve thing, um, or yeah, or anything related to um, problems with Blockstream or whatever. So what?
Why?
So
How
what's going
come?
on with oh because it's Bitcoin Cash because they're big blockers.
Okay.
Did you find an article or something about Bitcoin Cash's hard fork?
No, I'm just
I don't know anything about it.
where is it? I'm scrolling through Coin Codex, and they have top three coins to watch this week, and number one is Bitcoin
Hmm.
Cash, just because of the hard fork. Number two is
Yeah.
P
Well, I'm
Chain.
not
Never heard of P Chain. The other thing is, and the number three is
PJ.
Strat. And so I'm like, oh, okay,
Hmm.
because they're doing a mainnet release and token swap in a few days. and the Strat tokens are being burned for Strax, STRAX.
So
So
it's they're are they getting rid of the ticker Strat? And are they going to move to Strax?
it looks so.
That
The new
oh, okay.
Strax mainnet will launch November 12th.
It's just
So
a rebrand and
yeah.
an airdrop, basically.
And
Trying
then
to
P Chain's doing
well,
a mainnet update and token burn this week. And so
something that you said to me off the air about sort of legacy cryptos, like these ones that have been around for
yeah.
6 or 7 years, like Ripple or Stellar Lumens, like that, is the kind of question of like does that Strat in 2017 was one of the first of those altcoins to really explode and do like 10,000% in a week or whatever,
Yeah.
and it's possible that what you said to me, which is these legacy cryptos, maybe that's it. Maybe they're done. Maybe what they need to do is rebrand or burn all their tokens for something with an X in it now or whatever.
Yeah.
Strax. Maybe that's what we're gonna see. Maybe we're gonna see a new coin from Ripple Labs called like XRQ or something.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
don't
wouldn't be
know.
surprised. Like, cause like that's I was telling you what as working in the bar scene for 20 years, a lot of these owners, they own 3 or 4 different bars. What they do is they just shut one down, move all the employees over to the new one, and it's literally the same bar. It's just a different location. Everything's the same, but they say it's but they just shut it down for 6 weeks, do a slight gloss over of it, call it a different name, and then open it up and
rebrand.
people think it's a brand new bar. And you're like, okay, well, it
Yeah.
kind of is, but not really, because everything's exactly the same. You just moved that bar over here and changed the name.
Yeah. So in a bull market, I bet that works pretty darn well. I bet it works really well. Like to get like a nice little pump to like get some
Yeah,
relevance, because otherwise all of these new people coming in crypto, like Bitcoin hits 16,000, all these new people flood in, and they're like, oh, like who wants to buy Ripple or who wants to buy Monero? Like those are like old coins. They're never going to move again. And you and I are going like, they're probably going, like, I'm thinking like they probably will. Those coins
I
do
don't
move.
think that.
You don't think so?
I'm
Well,
really
we
on the
see when
fence.
in 2017 when I came into crypto, there were so many old coins that like Burst or even Sia coin. They've been around for a long time.
Yeah,
I never expected to see them move. I mean, even Verge. I mean, it had been around since 2014 or whatever. I thought those things were like dead.
yeah,
And I didn't. I thought that Monero was like something that's like, oh yeah, that's some sort of prehistoric privacy coin that's totally been, redesigned and rebranded as like, whatever new privacy coin there is out there now. So
yeah,
I didn't think they were going to stay up to date. 2020, we now know that Monero is one of the only cryptos besides Bitcoin that you can find on the dark net, and it's actually being used quite a lot. And the IRS is paying people to try to crack it. So I think that these old cryptos are going to be around for a long time, and whether it's rebranding or new marketing tactics or whatever, the next time we see a huge bull run, they're going to be they're just going to be a part of the they're just going to be a part of the bull run. That's what I think.
I mean,
I mean, I
I
don't
think they'll
think
be in the
Ripple's going anywhere.
rotation. I think they'll be in the rotation like all altcoins are. There's just a
Yeah,
rotation. You're like, okay, it's XLM's turn. Let's just pump this now, and I think
I
that's just
wish
how
it was that
crypto
easy.
works. But I mean, that's
Mm.
how it works. Like that's how the whales do it. They just kind of jump from one to one, and I just don't think. I don't know. I don't see XRP ever going anywhere. XLM. I mean, how I feel about XLM. I think it's a great project. I think it's they want to make it a nonprofit and this and that, and they work with IBM.
Hmm.
I just don't see this massive need for everyday people to jump into it, and I just don't ever
No,
see it really
it's like,
going
oh, but it's so
anywhere.
fast and cheap. It's so
Yeah, but
fast and
like
cheap.
so is
No one cares
Nano.
about fast and cheap.
Like no, obviously like so is Nano's faster and cheaper, and nobody cares about that, right? Like they can't get 10 people to join the
All it
cause.
takes is one little feature. All it takes is one little feature for everyone to go. I mean, man, in 2017, people were buying shit that they had no clue what it did. People were like, Cardano,
Yeah,
it's like kind of does a little bit of everything. That's why you should buy it. Or you choose between that and what, Tron or something like that. No one knew what
yeah,
Tron did either.
yeah.
Everyone thought Tron was going to be some sort of like massive like media empire, and it's
Does
just a
anybody know what
gambling
Tron
casino.
does? Still to this day, I still could not tell you. If somebody
It's
says,
a
"What does Tron do?" I could not tell you.
gambling casino. That's what it does. It's basically just a bunch of gambling games. That's all.
Okay,
That's all it is.
okay. But is it a? I
Um,
mean, is it like Ethereum? I mean, I'm being
yeah,
serious. People are gonna
it
roll
is.
their eyes, but I'm being dead serious. To this day, I still don't really know what Tron does.
Yes,
Like,
actually, it's almost it's a lot like Ethereum. In
okay,
fact, like you can build DApps using Solidity, the
okay,
code to build ERC20 tokens and DApps. So it's one of those things where there was a bit of buzz about Tron because Tron goes through different phases of ridicule for
yeah,
obvious reasons. But like when Ethereum fees are over $60 because everyone's trying to get into DeFi. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people that are thinking we can build the same exact scam on Tron, and the fees will be really low because Tron is proof of stake, and miners don't set miners aren't bidding for transaction fees.
yeah. But what you don't
So
realize is the fees are part of the scam.
no, totally, yeah, yeah.
The
Well,
people who are
I
doing a lot
mean,
of this stuff own a ton of the Ethereum and are also mining, and so they're just, you could.
yeah,
I'm sure there's a way to figure it out so you're the one getting the fees most of the time. Like you
but
create
like
this website.
somebody who wanted to do like a DeFi rug pull could easily do it on Tron, like easily. If somebody wanted
Sure.
to make an actually legit, like I'm sure there's like a Uniswap on Tron right now that you can
Oh yeah.
swap, and then eventually you'll be able to swap all ERC20 tokens on the Tron network too, or something like that. So I don't know. It's kind of useless in that there's going to be so many other platforms that do exactly what Tron does, so it doesn't really make sense. It's kind of a marketing game, and
Yeah.
they are being ridiculed. So yeah,
It's funny
I don't know.
because
It's
I this is an interesting, this is a conundrum for me, and I'll be the first one to admit that I'm kind of I'm being weird about this. Is I don't think Bitcoin's ever going to scale,
I thought we
and
already established that on this show.
but
I don't see how it can scale either unless it scales through things like Coinbase, which are completely centralized.
yeah. So I'm not pro Bitcoin. I'm pro cryptocurrency. I'm not pro Bitcoin. But at the same time, I feel like Ethereum eventually will scale. And I
Yeah,
know
I
that's a
think so.
complete. I feel like those are completely contradictory thought
No, not at all.
processes.
Not at all. Not at all.
So I'm
I
a little
agree.
more
Well,
pro
well
Ethereum.
Ethereum,
Go ahead.
Ethereum actually has more consensus about what they're doing. A lot of people give Ethereum shit for delaying the launch of Ethereum 2.0, but as somebody who has spent the last year trying to make some software, all I can say is that it takes a long time to do this. It takes a long time to
Yeah,
do what I'm doing and to do what they're doing and talking about, how many hundreds of billions, like we're talking billions and billions of dollars worth of infrastructure, businesses, trust, all of this stuff on this
yeah,
network. You can't just say, "Oh, our launch is going to be next year. See you then." Like that's not the
yeah,
way it's going to work. There's got to be
yeah,
all kinds of trials and tests and make sure that everything is seamless. Because what happens if they rush that thing and then there actually is some sort of exploit in the code? Oh man, they would
yeah.
be so fucked. They would be so
Didn't
fucked.
but
So
didn't
they
Vitalik
bet they
just launch? Didn't he just stake a shit ton of Ethereum
he did.
this week?
He staked 1 million in Ethereum.
Oof.
So
One million
that's
Ethereum or a
great. That's
million
awesome.
dollars worth of Ethereum?
A 1 million USD, I think, was what he staked.
Okay.
So not a whole lot, but I mean, still leading by example. Yeah, he
Yeah.
is. So he's taking the first step. But I mean, it's like when we had Vitalik on the show, like he wasn't even concerned about getting things done quickly. He was
Yeah.
like, I mean, he was like, if it takes 5 years, it takes 5 years. Like it doesn't matter. Like we're gonna, it just needs to, it needs to work well. And he wasn't even concerned about competition and stuff like that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
I
feel like
agree. I
that's the
think
good thing
Ethereum
about
will scale.
having a front man is that you can lead by example. If people look to you as the front man and you
Mm-hmm.
say, or front person, and you say, "Hey, folks, this is the way it is." Like Apple was notorious about that with Steve Jobs. He'd get into those boardroom meetings, or they'd get on those calls and they'd say, "We're doing this. If you don't like it, fuck you. Sell your stock." And he wasn't beholden to the stockholders at all. He didn't care. He was like, "This is what we're doing,
Badass.
and if you don't like
That's a
it, sell
hard
your
job to
stock."
do, man.
Yeah, so like and so that gives me a lot of respect for Vitalik, that he's like, "Hey, we're doing, like, this is the way it should be. Like, we're not,
Yeah.
let's not
No, I
rush.
love
Let's not
Vitalik.
do this."
I've got a lot of faith in him. I
Yeah.
think it's going to be awesome. I totally believe in what
Please
Vitalik is
don't
doing.
turn out to be a pedophile, Vitalik, because I really like you. I don't want to, like, this. I
That's
feel like we're at
so
this.
funny that you said that.
Well, I feel like
Oh
we're
my god.
at this point in our lives, in our culture also, where it's difficult to really like somebody
You're so right.
because
You're so
they
right.
turn out to be
They
Jeffrey
might be a
Epstein in
pedophile.
6 months. You're like, fuck, dude. How
Yeah.
the most innocuous human beings on the planet turn out to be fucking psychopaths, and you're like, I didn't see it coming. I can't really, like, vocally say I like anybody anymore, and this
It
is
sucks.
so.
That's, you know what? This is like, we got to talk about this on another episode because it's getting late. But like, you're so right. Like, I'm afraid to be a fan because, like, yeah, you're so right.
Like, I want to make a
Please,
Vitalik
Vitalik.
T-shirt, but I'm scared. I don't want to get burned.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to be careful with your tweets.
Yeah.
You got to be careful. Um, Vitalik, please don't be a pedophile. It's okay, Vitalik. You can be a weirdo. You can be into weird stuff.
Yes.
Just don't be a pedophile.
Weird, like
Don't be into like buying and selling human
Waz is
beings.
weird, but he's not creepy weird. He's,
Yeah.
interesting weird. So that's, I think, why Vitalik has kept going, has kept his persona going so long, is because he's interesting weird. He's that quirky friend you have who's really good at computers and doesn't know how to talk to people that well or whatever, and people love those kind of guys. But a fractional amount of those people tend to have people locked up in basements, and you're like, "Oh shit."
Yeah.
So
I wonder if we can title this episode "Vitalik, Please Don't Turn Out to Be a Pedophile."
I'm gonna say I'm gonna put the kibosh on that one. I'd love for him
It's
to actually come on the show again at one point.
yeah. Well, I mean, we have our high hopes. We are fans of his.
Yeah.
We don't want the worst.
Yes.
No, it'd be great to get him back on. I would have much better questions for him, and we'd have a much better system for communicating with him than last time.
Yeah, that was frustrating to have
All
that
right,
big
I think we
gap.
got to wrap up this show. I think that
Yeah.
I think actually, well, one thing I want to say just to wrap this up, it's November. It's November, first week in November in 2020. 3 years ago at this time, we were seeing the second or third bull run in Bitcoin, and we were about to see the biggest altcoin bull run of all time. So right now, the fact that the Bitcoin price is going up, it's hitting 16,000. That's higher than it's been in 2 years, 3 years. That's higher than it's been in 3 years.
3 years.
So that's pretty
Almost
exciting.
four.
I
2021 will be 4 years, so it's almost 4 years since it hit.
we don't talk about price very much on this show, but it is kind of exciting to see that, because that means there's going to be a lot more energy, a lot more people. We're probably going to see an entirely new generation of crypto fans and crypto influencers and new shows and podcasts and all that stuff. So,
and crypto scams.
and crypto scams, just get ready for it and be prepared to enjoy it all.
Hey, so
Let's
I'm going
look
to
for
put
the
this
next
out to the
Carlos
I'm
Mates.
going to put this out to the audience. If you're ever nervous about like getting scammed and somebody reaches out to you about something, ping us on Twitter. Me and JJ are really skeptical, and one of us will look into it. Because if you're worried about getting scammed, a lot of people are probably worried about getting scammed, and it'll probably at one point get in front of me or JJ's eyes. And I don't want to get scammed, so just reach out, publicize it. Don't be
Yeah, we'll check
afraid.
it out.
And if you don't want, if you want to be anonymous, DM us from an anonymous account. Because
Yeah.
I think just the more eyes we have on these scams, the more we can talk about it. Because like if this bull run, sorry, it was 3 years ago. 21 minus 18 is 3. So if another bull
Oh,
run
yeah,
is
that's right.
coming, there's going to be a lot of scams. Just keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you don't get blindsided by something, and invest in something sporadic. Impulsively. Just reach out to people you trust, and make sure that they check it for you also. Because if people are confirming, hey, this does look good, or this looks like a scam, you shouldn't do this. Just be careful. So
All right. And
that's
with
it.
that, everyone have a good night. We'll see
Yeah.
you around the universe. And see you next week.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
All right. Bye.